Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. I wasn't supposed to be home that early. My stomach was a mess from a bad vending machine burrito, so I left work, skipped traffic, and quietly let myself into the house. No drama, no suspicion, just planned on microwaving leftovers and laying on the couch with a heating pad like an old man. I wasn't expecting to overhear my wife on the phone in the kitchen. Definitely not whispering. I didn't catch the beginning. Just a pause, followed by her voice, soft and breathless. With you, I finally felt something. I don't feel that with him. I froze. Not in the cliché way people say they freeze. I mean, my brain actually glitched. I stared at the hallway wall like it was going to explain what I just heard. There wasn't even a confrontation. I stepped into the kitchen slowly. She saw me, eyes wide, jaw half open, phone still in hand. She said, "Curtis, wait. It's not what it sounds like." I said, "Really?" Because it sounded like my wife was telling someone else how alive he makes her feel. And she just stood there, stuck between guilt and panic. I pulled out a chair, sat down, didn't yell, didn't even raise my voice. I said, "Great, have fun." Came out so calm. It scared me. She blinked like I'd slapped her. "That's it?" she asked. "That's it," I replied. I picked up the cold bowl of pasta she had left out for me, put it in the microwave and pressed 90 seconds. She started crying. The microwave hummed. She cried louder. "Curtis," she said, "you're not even upset?" I said, "You already chose him. I'm just making your job easier." She dropped into the chair across from me, sobbing like I had broken her heart. The microwave beeped. I took my food, walked upstairs, and shut the door. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was angry, but because something in me snapped quiet. You know that kind of quiet that feels louder than screaming? That was me. She left the next morning to stay with her sister for a few days. 3 hours later, I got a DM on Instagram from someone I didn't know. Just a photo. It was her and him, together, at a concert last month. She told me she had gone to a work conference that weekend. The caption, "Me and my girl. Finally free blue heart." But here's the thing. The guy she was with, he's not single. And what I found out next, it wasn't just me she betrayed. The next morning felt like a bad dream trapped on repeat. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the closet door she forgot to shut, her favorite sweater still hanging crooked on the handle. The silence was heavy, like the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for me to lose it. But I didn't. I just scrolled through that message again, the one with the concert photo. Her smile in that picture was so open, so familiar, the kind of smile she hadn't given me in years. And that guy, her Jason, her finally felt something soulmate, had his arm around her waist like they'd been together forever. But here's where it got twisted. I tapped on the profile that sent me the DM. It was private, no profile picture, just a username that looked like random letters. But about an hour later, I got a second message. "Check your email. I sent you something." I hesitated. I mean, I wasn't thinking straight, but I wasn't dumb either. Still, curiosity was louder than caution. I opened my email and saw a thread of screenshots. Texts between Jason and his wife, Amanda. Yeah. His wife, Amanda, had found out everything. Apparently, she had gone through Jason's backup iCloud when she noticed strange credit card charges, hotel rooms, late-night Uber rides to addresses that didn't match his office. And the kicker? A restaurant reservation for two under a fake last name, one they apparently used often. One of the screenshots stopped my breath cold. It was a selfie. Aubrey and Jason, half naked, lying in a hotel bed. My wife who once cried during Pixar movies and apologized for killing houseplants, was smiling into the camera like she had just won the lottery. Amanda's message was simple and savage. "I thought you deserved to know. You're not alone in this." For the first time since that awful conversation in the kitchen, I actually felt something. Not anger, not even heartbreak, just this dull, burning embarrassment. How long had I been the joke? How many times did she kiss me goodnight after spending the day in someone else's arms? I sat in that moment for hours. Didn't eat. Didn't shower. Just stared at my screen, piecing together two separate lives, hers and mine, and realizing they hadn't overlapped in months. I kept asking myself the same thing on loop. How did I not see this coming? When she came back home that evening, she looked surprised to see me still there. She had a bag in her hand and a fake, "Are you okay?" look on her face. I didn't even speak. I just handed her my phone with the screenshots. She didn't cry this time, didn't defend herself, just stared at them, cheeks pale, lips pressed tight. Finally, she whispered, "Who sent you these?" I replied, "His wife." She closed her eyes and exhaled like the air had been punched out of her. And then, "Get this," she said, "this was never supposed to be serious, right? Because affairs are casual little hobbies now." I didn't scream. I didn't beg her to explain. I just turned around and went into the guest room, locked the door behind me. That was the first night we slept under the same roof as strangers. But the truth is, she wasn't done yet. And neither was Amanda. I didn't sleep that night, not even a little. I lay there in the guest room with the door locked, staring at the ceiling, listening to the occasional creak of the floorboards upstairs. Every so often, I'd hear her pacing, probably rehearsing what to say. Or maybe she was texting him, Jason, the guy who gave her goosebumps and fireworks, while I gave her stability and loyalty, apparently the least romantic combo known to man. Around 4 a.m., I got another message from Amanda. "You up?" I replied, "Obviously." She didn't waste time. "I think it's time we meet. I want to show you something in person. He lied to both of us. And if you're willing, we might be able to turn this into something they won't forget." Now look, I'm not a revenge guy. I'm soft-spoken. I apologize to chairs when I bump into them. But something about the way she said it, calm, calculated, felt oddly comforting. Not petty, not loud, just necessary. So I agreed. We met that afternoon at a quiet little cafe on the other side of town. I sat at a booth by the window, sweating through my shirt, my leg bouncing under the table like a jackhammer. Amanda walked in like she'd done this 100 times before. No hesitation, not even a blink. She slid into the booth, opened her bag, and placed a manila folder on the table. I didn't ask what it was. She opened it for me. Inside were photos, dozens of them. Him and Aubrey at hotels at that same concert from the Instagram post, even one of them holding hands in a grocery store. They weren't hiding. They weren't even being careful. They were just living a second life, bold and stupid, like no one would ever catch them. Amanda said, "I hired a PI 6 weeks ago. I had a gut feeling. Turns out, my gut is a better husband than Jason ever was." That made me laugh, which felt weird and wrong. But I needed it. She leaned in. "Look, I don't know what you want out of this. Maybe you walk away. Maybe you try counseling. But me, I'm not staying silent. And if you're in, I think we can make this poetic." I didn't answer immediately. I just kept flipping through the photos, each one more humiliating than the last. One of them was taken in our neighborhood, right down the street. Aubrey had told me she was out, getting wine for dinner. I remembered that night. I made chicken parm. She said it was too dry. Turns out she probably wasn't hungry. I finally looked up and asked, "What exactly do you mean by poetic?" Amanda smiled, and it wasn't a cruel smile. It was the kind people wear when they've made peace with the storm and are ready to dance in the rain. She slid a small flash drive across the table. "Proof," she said, "and a plan. Jason thinks I'm away this weekend. He's planning to meet Aubrey at that cabin in Echo Pines, the one he told me he bought for hunting." I didn't even know how to process it. A cabin? These people were nesting while pretending to work late shifts. She continued, "We show up, together. We don't scream. We don't fight. We just stand there. Let them see exactly who they chose to betray. No drama, just truth." I nodded, slowly. Something about the calmness of it, the quiet confrontation, felt powerful. We agreed to meet again in 2 days. Until then, I had to pretend like everything was normal. Aubrey came home that night and tried to act like we were on a break. like we just needed space to reset. I played along. I didn't ask questions. I just smiled. I even made her pancakes the next morning. She said, "You're being sweet again." I almost laughed. Again? Sweet? No, Aubrey. I was just getting ready. Saturday came faster than I expected. The morning air felt colder than usual, like the universe wanted me to be fully awake for what was about to happen. I barely slept the night before, not because I was anxious, but because I was rehearsing. Rehearsing what I'd say, how I'd stand, whether I'd flinch when I saw her face. I practiced keeping my voice steady, shoulders back, eyes locked. Amanda said the power wasn't in anger. It was in stillness. And for once, I believed her. She picked me up in her SUV just after noon. Her expression was unreadable. Eyes forward, hands firm on the wheel. She didn't ask if I was ready. We both knew that ship had sailed. The cabin in Echo Pines was about 45 minutes out of town. I recognized the road the second we turned onto it. Aubrey had mentioned it once, said Jason's friend had a place in the woods where they sometimes had bonfires. Turns out Jason was the friend. The driveway was gravel and curved between trees like a spine. Amanda parked just out of sight, and we made the rest of the walk on foot. My heart wasn't racing. It was steady, slow, even. Like I was walking into the final chapter of a book I didn't want to read, but had no choice but to finish. The cabin was beautiful in that overly curated way. String lights hung on the porch, a pair of rocking chairs facing the woods, one with a flannel blanket draped across it. Cozy, romantic, disgusting. We stood just short of the porch steps when Amanda nodded. "Ready?" I didn't speak. I just walked up and opened the door. No knocking, no warning. The sound of laughter hit first. Then the smell of bacon and something sweet, maybe cinnamon rolls. They were in the kitchen. She was wearing one of his oversized shirts. He was barefoot, holding a mug. The way they looked at each other made my stomach tighten. Not because it hurt, no, not anymore, but because it was so normal. Like they were the couple, like I was the stranger. Jason saw me first. His smile froze. He didn't move, didn't speak. Just blinked like his brain was buffering. Aubrey turned next, and I swear her face changed in slow motion. Confusion, then panic, then something close to shame. Amanda stepped in behind me and closed the door gently. The silence was deafening. Aubrey finally broke it. "Curtis, what are you?" "I made pancakes this morning," I said flatly. "You said I was being sweet again." Her lips parted like she was about to explain. Then she realized there was no explanation. No script. No plan. Jason looked at Amanda. "Listen, I can explain." She cut him off. "I'm not here for an explanation. I'm here for closure." They both looked small, shrinking somehow, like kids who got caught sneaking out after curfew. Aubrey stepped forward like she wanted to touch me, say something that would undo all of this. But I stepped back. "No," I said. "Don't." She whispered, "You weren't supposed to find out like this." That got a laugh out of Amanda. A real bitter laugh. "Yeah. It's always better when the betrayed stay in the dark, right?" Jason looked like he wanted to disappear. He didn't defend himself. Didn't move. I almost respected that. Almost. I turned toward the door but paused before leaving. "You felt something with him," I said. "That's what you told me." Aubrey nodded slowly, eyes wet. I shrugged. "Now I finally feel nothing, and you're going to have to live with that." We left without another word. No screaming, no threats, just silence. It echoed louder than any argument could. In the car, Amanda exhaled. "That went better than I thought." I looked out the window and said, "They're both going to remember that for the rest of their lives." And I meant it. The drive back was quiet, but it wasn't the same kind of quiet that used to fill my house. That quiet was heavy, suffocating. This one was lighter, like something had been lifted off my chest, even if the wound underneath was still raw. Amanda dropped me off without saying much. Just a brief nod, like we were both trying to process what we'd just done. I didn't go inside right away. I stood there on the porch, staring at the front door, wondering how many lies had walked through it without knocking. When I finally went in, the house felt foreign. Familiar furniture, familiar smells, but everything felt out of place. I went upstairs, packed a small overnight bag, and left a single note on the table for Aubrey. It said, "I'm not gone, but I'm done." I didn't even know what that meant at the time. I just knew I couldn't stay under the same roof while she still smelled like someone else's cologne. I checked into a cheap motel near the highway. It had peeling wallpaper and a vending machine that ate my dollar. Still better than home. That night, I lay on the stiff mattress staring at the ceiling fan when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me open the message. "You don't know me, but I think you and I have a very specific woman in common." My stomach dropped. I sat up, heart pounding. Another message followed. "Check your email and brace yourself." I opened my laptop and logged in. Sure enough, one new email. No subject. Just a thread of screenshots and a name I hadn't seen in years: Colin Sandler. Colin was my old college roommate. We hadn't spoken since graduation. Not because we fought or drifted apart, but because after I introduced him to Aubrey during our senior year, he started acting weird, distant. Eventually, he just vanished from my life. I assumed it was one of those things. Life happens. People fade. But here he was, messaging me now out of the blue with a confession. Turns out, the reason Colin cut ties all those years ago was because of her. Aubrey. She had slept with him. Once. Back when we had just started dating. According to him, she told him we weren't serious yet, that she and I were just seeing where things were going. He believed her, and when he found out later that she and I had already been exclusive, he tried to come clean. But she begged him not to, said I'd never forgive either of them, said it was a mistake that didn't matter. He believed her again. But after seeing the cabin photos online, apparently, Amanda had uploaded them anonymously to a private forum for betrayed spouses. He recognized her. And guilt, after all this time, finally caught up. He wrote, "I should have told you back then. I thought I was protecting you. But now I think I was just protecting her." I stared at that screen, stunned. I remembered the night Aubrey and I first said, "I love you." I remembered how she cried, said she'd never felt safer with anyone. I remembered how I believed her. And now all I could wonder was, how many versions of her had I never seen? I called Amanda the next morning. When she answered, I didn't say hello. I just asked, "Did you post those pictures online?" She paused for a second and then said, "Yes. I figured if they weren't going to face consequences at work or from their friends, they should at least have to face someone." I told her about the message, about Colin, about the betrayal that predated even Jason. Amanda didn't sound shocked, just tired. "They never start with Jason," she said. "There's always a history." That line stuck with me the rest of the day. There's always a history. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't about Jason. He wasn't the first. He just happened to be the last straw. Because now I wanted to know everything. No more illusions. No more half-truths. And I knew exactly where to start. With her mother. I hadn't spoken to Aubrey's mom, Denise, in months. We'd always had a civil relationship. Not exactly warm, but polite. She was one of those women who smiled with her mouth but never with her eyes. Always polished. Always in control. When Aubrey and I got married, Denise gave a toast that was more like a corporate speech than a blessing. She said, "Marriage is about timing and strategy." Looking back, I should have known what kind of foundation I was marrying into. I called her on a Tuesday morning. She didn't sound surprised to hear from me. No questions, no pleasantries. Just a short pause before she said, "I was wondering when you'd call." That threw me off. "You were." She sighed. "Curtis, I told Aubrey years ago. If she kept living like this, something would catch up with her." My heart started to race. I asked her what she meant, but she dodged. Said we should talk in person. Invited me over for coffee like this was some casual catch-up. Not the unraveling of my life. I went the next day. Her house was pristine like always. White cushions, scented candles, and a bowl of lemons in the kitchen that were definitely just for show. Denise made coffee and handed me a cup without sitting down. She stood by the window like a judge ready to deliver a sentence. "I didn't raise her to be this way," she said quietly. I stayed silent. She was always charming, always knew how to twist things to get what she wanted. Her father, she stopped, exhaled. Her father wasn't faithful. Aubrey caught him once. I thought she'd be disgusted. Instead, she smiled. She said, "At least he's not boring." I nearly dropped my cup. How old was she? 13. That number hit hard. 13. And already forming an idea of love that was built on lies and excitement over loyalty. I wanted to feel pity. I really did. But all I felt was dread. Denise finally sat down. "There's something else. Something I didn't say when you two got married." She opened a drawer beside her and pulled out a small velvet pouch. Inside was a flash drive. She handed it to me like it was a cursed object. "I found this in her room right after college. I made a copy. I thought it was just one of her college projects or something, but curiosity got the better of me. I plugged it into my laptop as soon as I got home. The contents were folders organized by dates, names, and something even more chilling, ratings. Each folder had photos, messages, and in some cases, voice memos. Aubrey had documented her experiences with different people, as if they were test drives. There were dozens, possibly more. Some were from before we met. Some were during our marriage. Some overlapped. Couldn't breathe. I slammed the laptop shut and just sat there, the sound of blood rushing in my ears. I remembered all the times she told me I was safe, that she felt grounded with me. Now I knew why. I was the control variable in her experiment. I texted Amanda, "You were right. Jason wasn't the start. He wasn't even the middle." She called me instantly. I told her everything. Denise, the flash drive, the folders. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Curtis, this isn't just betrayal. This is pathology." I didn't sleep that night. I didn't go back to the motel either. I drove, for hours, through neighborhoods I didn't recognize, gas stations in the middle of nowhere, diners that were open too late. I needed to be away from everything. But the thing that haunted me most wasn't what Aubrey had done. It was how many versions of her had existed, and how none of them were the one I married. The more I drove, the more the memories changed. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's what happened. Every memory I had with her. Laughing in the kitchen, watching old movies in bed, holding hands in the grocery store. They all started to feel fake, like scenes from a movie someone else lived. My brain kept replaying them, but now with a new narrator. One that whispered she was lying here too. Look closer. And the worst part? Felt like I had lied to myself the entire time. By morning, I'd made it to a small lakeside town about 2 hours away. I checked into a quiet bed and breakfast run by a retired couple who didn't ask questions. For the first time in weeks, I sat down and allowed myself to feel everything. Anger, grief, shame, confusion. I cried harder than I expected. I hated that it felt like weakness, even though it was probably the first real thing I'd done for myself in years. I stayed there for 2 days. Didn't tell anyone where I was. Not even Amanda. I needed silence. I needed to figure out who I was without her, without us. The flash drive kept replaying in my mind. The folders, the voices, the little notes she left herself in some of the files. Not exciting. Too predictable. Wouldn't cheat with him. One note just said, "Curtis, comfortable, but numb. Comfortable, but numb." I thought about all the times I asked if she was happy, and she'd just smile and say, "We're good." How many times had I taken that at face value, too afraid to dig deeper, too afraid of hearing what I already knew? On the 3rd day, I got a message from Amanda. She's trying to get ahead of it. She posted some story online about how you were distant and cold for years. She's painting herself as confused and hurt. Of course she was. Aubrey always had a backup plan. She never lost control without crafting the illusion that it was never her fault to begin with. That night, I sat at the small wooden desk in the room and wrote a letter. Not to her, but to myself. I needed clarity. and writing it out helped. By the time I finished, I realized something. I didn't want revenge. Not the way Amanda did. I didn't want to burn everything down or make a scene. What I wanted was peace. And peace wasn't going to come from proving Aubrey wrong. It would come from walking away so thoroughly that she couldn't rewrite the ending. So I made a plan. I drove back home at midnight, quietly packed up my remaining things that actually mattered to me. Some books, my journals, my dad's watch, a few photos from before the marriage. I left the wedding album. I didn't need it. That wasn't my life anymore. Then I sat at her desk, the one where she used to pretend to work late, and left her a note. Not angry, not bitter, just final. The version of you I loved never existed. I hope one day you meet her too. I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. Before I left, I did one last thing. I opened my phone and uploaded a single file from the flash drive. A voice memo she had recorded, talking to one of her affairs, saying I was just a backup plan, and that she never really saw Curtis as a man with an edge. I didn't post it publicly. I just sent it to her. No message. No subject. Just that. She called me 10 minutes later. I didn't answer. She called again. Then again. I turned off my phone. Felt incredible. Not in a triumphant way. Not like I'd won. Just clean. Quiet. Like finishing a book and placing it on a shelf, knowing you'll never open it again. But you're glad you read it because now you know how it ends. But the story wasn't completely over. Because a few days later, I got one more message. From someone I never expected. Her father. The message came late at night. I was sitting on the balcony of my new apartment, watching city lights blink like quiet little confessions. I just finished my 3rd day at a new job. Nothing glamorous, but far from the gray cubicle I'd spent the last few years rotting in. My life was quiet now, smaller but clearer. No more second-guessing every word I said. No more walking on emotional eggshells. Just me rebuilding. The text was short. Curtis, I think we should talk. You deserve the truth. Frank. Frank was Aubrey's father. The man I'd met only a few times. He always seemed distant, half there during family gatherings, always quick to retreat with a glass of something strong in his hand. I never thought much of him, but his message hit something in me that hadn't stirred in weeks. Curiosity. We met at a park the next day. He looked older than I remembered, tired around the eyes. We didn't shake hands. He just sat down on the bench beside me and took a breath that sounded like it had been waiting to escape for years. I'm not here to defend her, he said. You probably think I'm part of the problem. Maybe I am. I didn't say anything. I let him talk. She gets it from me. The lying, the masking. I had affairs. Denise knew. We made a deal to stay together for the appearances. Aubrey saw more than we thought. She learned early that love was performance. He looked at me, and his eyes weren't filled with guilt. They were filled with regret. I just wanted to tell you, none of this was your fault. You were good to her. Too good. And if I'd been a better father, maybe she'd know how to keep something real. I nodded. That's all I could do. Because as strange as it sounds, I needed to hear it. Not for closure with Aubrey, but for closure with myself. When I left the park, I felt lighter, like the final piece had been set down. I didn't need more apologies. I didn't need to keep unboxing old lies or chasing explanations. I was done. I deleted every photo of her from my phone that night, packed up the last of the reminders into a small box and left it in the alley beside a thrift store. Someone else could rewrite those memories if they wanted. And me? I went back upstairs, made myself a grilled cheese, and watched a documentary about deep-sea divers. I laughed, not at anything in particular, just because I could. That's the funny thing about betrayal. Feels like the end of everything. But sometimes, it's the one brutal, necessary shove you need to finally start over. To anyone watching who's been through something similar, you're not weak for loving the wrong person. You're strong for surviving it. And one day, when you least expect it, you'll feel peace instead of pain. And that's when you'll know the story's really over. Thank you for watching this story on the Reddit Confessions channel. If it resonated with you, Hit that like button and subscribe for more true stories that hit where it hurts. And hey, drop a comment below and tell us, what's a historical event you wish you could have witnessed in person? Let's bring a little curiosity into the chaos. Until next time, take care of yourselves and don't ignore the quiet parts. They always speak the loudest.